right, all right, all right. Let's see what sound sounds like. A little bit late. Really wasn't gonna do a stream actually, but I thought this was I just don't really feel like coding per se like right now. So been working on this other project all week, and yeah, just kind of want to chill. So, but I did want to at least stream and talk about something that I think is important to this stream or this the stream of streams. This the series of streams. And it's just about interview process. Was talking to kind of like talked to my manager already, and it's like, hey, listen, man, I'm looking for something new. Just want to give you a heads up. He's a good friend and everything like that. So yeah, I'm sure it's not like what he wants, of course. And he helped me out a lot when I got this job. So talked to him about it, but I'll go into something else too. Like when you leave a job, man, like sometimes, you see, you leave a job and you think you're doing quote unquote something good for the company, and they kind of regress, which is like extremely annoying. So I don't know, or you just lose contact with people, like things don't work out the way you want them to, because I would still there's job my night job that I worked for 9 years. There's a project that I would have loved. It was such an ambitious project, huge undertaking, and I would have loved to have been a part of it. But it never got to the point where I could, still they never talked to me anymore. So I still feel ways about that. Hold on, let me just listen to this. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, so I still feel a ways about that because I thought it would have been such an ambitious project. So I was working for a data center or co-location facilities, and they had them spread throughout the nation. And they have, of course, also had quite a few pop locations as well. And one of the things I was writing software for while, handling my regular stuff, doing tickets, I was writing software to the point where we could remotely, provision, build a whole provisioning web application. And yeah, that thing was pretty freaking sweet. And I had it with some billing graphs and stuff like that. That was when I first really started to post some stuff on YouTube. At one point, that was it was in 2020. Yeah, so yeah, 2020, kind of getting to the last. Probably third quarter 2020. Yeah, third quarter 2020. And that's when I was posting some stuff and then dropped off and got back on. But it was such an ambitious project, and one of the things it was doing is that we had all these different devices all over the place, and it was a way that we can actually start dropping connections, configuring whole devices, and doing all types of other stuff. Just because there's tools that were out there that would do it, but it would be super expensive, kind of cost prohibitive. And, we wanted something also custom that could do a little bit more, and I was all for it because I had worked at the company for so damn long and see the stagnant the growth or the archaic ways that they dealt with a lot of things. Everything had to be bought and licensed. There's nobody to really say, hey, listen, we want to make this look a lot better than it is. And we're willing to make the capital investment in the people so that we can actually come up with a better product overall. And it was more or less, it was a capitalistic venture because it was bought by venture capitalists twice, I believe, or once, and then it was sold again to a guy. I don't know if he was a venture capitalist, but he bought data centers. Anyways, so that's what we were seeing, and they just did it the old way, But during this time, of course, or during my time there, from 2011 to 2020, I see the company, and I developed little things like the Man on Site service, which is Moss. That's a project I want to pick back up, and especially with some of the networking I'm doing here at the house, moving some stuff around and cleaning up, and really starting to do some remodels around the house, really little fix ups. And so I had to configure my Nexus 3048 TP switch. It's a full gigabit switch, 52 ports, and also does 10 gigabit if you have the right SFPs and the last 4 ports. So that's pretty cool. And this project was one where it's like, it would create Ansible playbooks or Ansible playbooks based off of configurations. Also would do whois management. I had to actually read the RFC for whois and then configure that and do all types of others and configure it based off of that code. I actually had to write a whois to JSON wrapper, which was pretty cool. Do I have that? Let me see if I can find that. Yeah, because that was actually pretty nice. I didn't start off with art today, but we'll skip over it for now. I just saw like this thing of a Bulbasaur, which is crazy. Pokemon. Where is it? I'm just looking for. Is it OmniTool scripts? Oh man. And server modules core. Controller. It probably was on controller. Whois. There we go. Whois.js. Yeah. So this was pretty sick at the time. Let me break this out over here. Share screen. I wasn't even going to share screen today. I'm just going to talk. I was just going to blab. Let me see if there is. Ooh, that's not something I should show, even though I haven't worked at the company for a freaking year. Mod form request, port query strings are required. Okay. And let me just get rid of this here. Hold on. Just gotta sanitize this stuff real quick. It doesn't have any password or anything like that, and I don't doubt that this box is. I mean, it's an internal IP address, but I have no doubt that this box is like dead anyway. But wow, you look at some of your old code and be like, wow, I've been doing this for a while. So it's kind of cool. Some of the stuff I still like do. I kind of want to pick this back up too. That'd be kind of cool. If I can get like another handle on this, it'd be freaking sick. Okay. I'm ready for my close up. All right, so here, share screen. Oh, and that's to talk to a friend today about a fellow streamer and talk to him about streaming and the best way to do it. So this is something like I don't have this public at the moment or anything like that. So, but with this, let's get that pretty big because we have bad quality. Talked to him about. I talked to my friend about streaming today and probably getting a streaming box built and getting a capture card and all that other stuff. I don't have the money for that right now, but I am it's on the list. So what this would do is actually query whois servers and the host and everything like that, port whatever the query was, because it would actually make the query. And then once it makes the query, it would actually take it and then parse all of that information. So I would be using what was actually on the system, the whois daemon that's on the or the whois binary that's already on the system to execute this. So it was an actual system call. I think exact. I wouldn't do exact anymore or exact anymore. I would do something like um, I wouldn't do exact. I forgot what I do. For what you do now, it's kind of yeah. I forgot what you do. It's just like child. I think it's like child dot process or something like that. Child process. I forgot how to run like code on us, like server side code, like on the box itself. But I wouldn't do exact. And this right here, what it would take is it would take all the information and then start merging all this stuff and creating an actual JSON object. And then it'll also take that JSON object later and then push it out to be viewed in a text box on the side. I kind of wish I had like a whole server of this running up and running, and it would be kind of nice to see how I did a lot of stuff there. Like, I was working with text areas and making them sticky, but then making it to where you couldn't edit the text area, but you can copy and paste. So you would disable the text area, right? So it would like show everything grayed out, but then you could copy and paste all the contents of that text area because you can go ahead and edit, something like a who is record. And then on the that was on the right hand side. On the left hand side, you can add other fields, and you can add other fields based off of the RFC, like all the fields that you normally would use, and then of course all the obscure ones that you don't always use, but is a part of the standard. So I had to look at that and then see what was Maddox. What's good, brother? Damn, appreciate you joining, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for showing up. I'm going to be talking about interviewing, but I kind of wanted to get this out of the way. It's just. I'm talking really about like jobs, but I'm talking about like you leave jobs and you leave these projects that were like really cool, and you just sadly you shut yourself out of it because you've moved on. Like I've never moved on. I haven't really had a job to where I moved on and it was really bad terms or anything. Like I always try to be nice about it, give the 2 weeks, make the moves accordingly make my moves and then make the moves to where it doesn't disrupt the flow of the company or anything like that. So I'm talking about that first before the multi-phase interview process, because I've been through this like 2 times and it's like I want to like talk about this a little bit more. But you leave these jobs and you leave these projects behind, man, that just had so much potential, so much ambition, and it's just like, damn. Like, why is it that we can't, do a little bit more with this? Or you're locked out, but, things like taking who is the actual, not service, but taking who is itself and actually converting it to JSON and stuff like that. Cause there's nothing out at the time. There was nothing out there that did something like this. So I need a JSON object. And it's like, okay, picking stuff like this back up and then actually just putting it out just for like, okay, hey, listen, maybe some clicks or something like that. And then you can improve it. It's very simple. It's a well-known standard. You can read the RFC. And that's another thing too. If you could read the RFC, like for instance, like, DNS to JSON, which is, I'm sure already been done and it's probably not that hard either, right? But DNS to JSON or something like that. Those are popular things, but you have to read the RFC to understand how to actually convert that standard to something like a JSON object, and then of course make it to where it can be reverse engineered as well. So reading it to JSON and then converting it back from JSON to a regular DNS file. I forgot what they call a DNS file, man. Damn it. Man, what do they call a zone file? Converting it back to a zone file or something like that, right? So, yeah, it's stuff like this, man. You just see it and it's just like, holy shit, man. I wish I could get back into this. Like, this was like a big ass function. It was like, what, 53 line? 53, ends at 53, starts at 6, 3, so 47 lines. Yeah, about 47 lines to actually do a whois query and convert it to JSON. So take the query itself, also do some things to actually protect your input and all this other stuff. So you got to do all that. There's a lot more stuff I would add now and change up the way it was done. Also adding, try catch. I wasn't doing try catches here. You can see how my code is actually quote unquote evolved. gotten better and using better standards to make this a little bit more rock solid, and it always returns something and doesn't give your server a what's it called, a runtime error or anything like that. You know, or an execution error, I should say, not a runtime error. Yeah, so things like this, man. This is the stuff that you lose. So, you know, even my current job, I talked to my manager about it, and I was just like, listen, man, you know, it would suck, you know, leave and then stuff regresses, you know. So, like, I don't like that part. And I hope I can still work with them in some capacity, or even if it's just say, listen, man, find somebody that will do this, so on and so forth. Anyways, so moving on to what I want to talk about, the multi-phase interview. Let's go ahead and remove that. The multi-phase interview. So a lot of times you'll see that like larger job, or sorry, higher end jobs where you're not just a technician, but you're an engineer. Usually if you're a lower level technician, it might take 1 to 2 interviews. The more money you make also, and then the more structured the company is, you'll get multi-phase interviews. So if you're going for a job that's probably making $75,000, $80,000, maybe even a little bit more, they're actually going to want to know a little bit more about you. Like, you know, some people will do the interviews, like ask you what type of movies do you like, see who you are, and kind of test you and ask you questions and see if they can actually, you know, put you in a corner in a box and see how you would respond. Also, one thing that's very important is not only the questions that they ask you and how you answer, but the questions you ask them. That's very important. That's something I did realize when I had my technical interview the other day. So first interview is usually a screening call, right? It's usually from the person that is, sometimes it's somebody from HR, and they're given a couple questions and they don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about the position. They don't know anything about, you know, who, like, you know, how these things are done. So you can't really give them too much. You give them an answer, and then you kind of feel it out. And like, one thing I'm really good at, and I'll say this is somewhat of, it's somewhat of a skill that I've kind of worked on, but it's natural to me. Put it like this. Put it like that. It's more of an innate skill. I think I said that right. Let me look up the word innate. I think I said that right. Innate. Shout out to Daniel Tucker, Richard Dixon. I've been talking to those guys off stream, and hopefully we can, you know, do some other stuff, man, pretty soon, like some tandem coding, you know, what's it called, team coding work on stream and on other projects. And then also talking about the 12, the 12, I forgot what it's called, 12. There's something for developers, but I read the first 3 and I was like, well, okay, this is pretty good. And I want to probably do a talk/series about it, and going a little bit deeper. And that's kind of like, you know, working with DevOps. Check the last stream for that. There was a lot of links dropped in that. A lot of information was given up by our brother, Daniel Tucker. And he gave up a lot of game in terms of, or a lot of resources and game in the chat. And that was a really great interaction. Definitely love that. So innate, existing naturally or by hereditary. Okay. Or heredity. All right, cool. Yeah. Innate. I got it right. So, a bit of an innate skill to read people and understand. So you start asking questions, or you start saying certain things, and, you know, you hear how they read it. Like, sometimes you can hear somebody reading a script and then somebody reading a script, but they know what they're talking about. Like, it's more of like a reminder, if anything. So sometimes you run into that. So you'll have that first screening call. In some cases, that first screening call is going to be by maybe your direct manager or someone in the department, maybe your colleague your future colleague that you'll work with. And then that person starts asking you a couple questions and kind of filters you out before you get to the, you know, next level, or the boss battle, which would be the person that's going to say yes to hiring you. And again, these things are structured differently. So lower level jobs, you don't have that many interviews. Higher level jobs, where they're expecting you to be a team lead, department lead, or something like that, you're going to be talking to somebody for quite a bit of time. Or you're going to be talking to multiple people for, you know, hour or more at a time. So that's your first level of interviews. And that, for higher end jobs, when you're being maybe an engineer, higher end a developer, maybe junior, intermediate, or higher, that screening call is kind of to see, okay, do you fit? Ask a couple of questions, tell you about the job. Do you think this would be work for you as an opportunity? Maybe even impress the person that you are talking to. So, that work that goes into your personality. Also, you might be getting called by the staff recruiter or the recruiting company or a staffing agency that will, quote unquote, represent you, meaning that they're going to take a cut of your paycheck to get you a job, get you a contract or something like that. And they're going to ask you a couple of questions. They may actually change your resume so that you can actually look better as a candidate to the next level, the person that is going to review it. Again, depending on where you're coming from, you're going to have different experiences at this first level. So first one is you're talking to the HR person, right? And they don't know what they don't know what they're actually asking you. They're reading off a script, and maybe most likely that call is recorded and that call will be played back. Second scenario is you're talking to your colleague, maybe direct manager, and they're just kind of screening you to see if you would fit, to see if like they ask you a couple questions that you would you'd be able to answer, and you'd kind of hopefully fit in. And then there's the other scenario where you're talking to maybe your team lead, and then your team lead is the first person. They have more of a screening call, right? And this is what I've experienced recently. They'll have a screening call, and this is where you kind of quote unquote wow and impress them to a certain extent, and then talk to them about, hey, listen, this is what I like to do in these situations. What issues are you having? You start asking questions like, okay, what issues are you having? What problems are you guys running into? What are your in this case, one interview, like I asked about the deliverables. Like, what do you have to actually deliver in terms of paperwork, documentation, work? What do you have to? What is the result of your execution, right? So you execute something, meaning you say, hey, listen, you execute a job. So that's configuring a switch or a server or something like that. And the result is that you have a server that's configured. But how do you want that? How does that look? What do you have to go into to learn all this, so on and so forth, right? So you start asking questions like that, because at that stage, depending on who you're talking to, at what level, if it's your team lead, then you can start talking a little bit more. You can start impressing them, saying, hey, listen, yeah, I read up on this. I understand this. And for me, I try to be honest, because I don't want to get in and they'd be like, I thought you knew this. And I'd be like, I was just playing with y'all, man. I didn't think I was going to get hired. Shit. I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't like doing that. It doesn't feel right to me. And it doesn't look good when you get in and you're at more, you want to, of course, at a certain age, you don't want the instability, man. Like, you want to get hired and you're not trying to leave that job for another year, 2 years, if not more. And that leads into another thing, the having them feel like you're not just, you're actually interested in the job, and you're not coming because, oh, you saw the amount that they're paying, like, and honestly, sometimes I'd be honest with them. They'll be like, so, why did you pick this? I'm not going to lie. I saw it and I thought it was interesting and I applied to it. And then, but you go a little bit deeper into that. And then, you hit them with the honesty and they're like, wow, this guy is like brutally honest. Some people like it. Some people do not. You're going to screw yourself with that. But the thing is, if you're not yourself, I try to be myself the most I can. I don't try to come off as anybody else. That works for me. I talked to another friend. He was like, bro, I'm not going to lie, bro. I lied on my first interview with a well-known bank. And he was just like, yo, man, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie to you, but I lied, man. I told him all types of shit. I like the stuff that they want me to know. I didn't know it. And the guy was like, hey, do you know this? He's like, yeah, I do. The guy did not know it, right? But he sure as shit figured that out. But that's another thing too. Like, you see a lot of these different jobs and job postings when you're searching for stuff, and they want you to know all this stuff. And it's just like, bro, how am I going to know all this stuff? Like, I can learn it when I get there, but at a certain pay rate, they're going to expect you to know this type of stuff, and you're going to have to. So there's that. But Yeah, like I try not to lie on that screening call. I try to also impress them and ask questions, not just how I answer the question and how well I answer the question, but then also impress them with the questions that I ask, because I do want to know more about the job. I do want to have a better understanding. I also do want to tell you, hey, listen, what I am going to do and what I'm not going to do. I tell them in so many different I tell them in a different way, a humorous way, and I say, hey, listen, I'm too pretty for ugly work. You know what I mean? Like, and they were like, well, it's not an asshole comment, but people understand it. Like, people understand, like, yo, I don't want to do ugly work. Like, I just don't want to just do the tedious analog like work where you're like, you have to check all boxes, and it's 1,000 boxes. How about I write something to where it checks all those boxes for me automatically on JavaScript? Like, do a document.query selector all, and then your type is if it's a what is it? If it's a checkbox, it's an input, right? And then there's multiple inputs on the page or different types of inputs. So you just make sure you select all checkboxes, or maybe your checkboxes are all things that have a certain class to it, assigned to it. Like I've done in other projects where you can assign a class to some input box and then get all the information doing a query selector all. So it's like, I'm going to write something like that that's going to check all those boxes. Once I have that query selector all, it gives me a node list, which is an array-like element or array-like data structure, and I can cycle through it and do a for each. And then in that for each, I can do check box, like, e.checkbox. It's like, listen, I'm doing that. That's like a couple lines of code. I'm not checking all them boxes. I'm too pretty for ugly work. It ain't me. I'm just too pretty for ugly. I'm not doing that. But you talk to them, and and you impress that upon them. You impress them with that, and you tell them, like, listen, I'm going to try and find a way to make this easier for us in some way, shape, or form. Some people will hire you on the spot and says, come right now, whatever you want, baby, let's go. And I've had that. I applied for Lennar probably about like 2 years ago before I got my current day job. And I was in the third phase on this third interview phase for this other job. And Lennar hired me on the spot. I didn't leave. And then I didn't have a job. I was talking schedule before I even walked out of that building. They were like, yeah, we need you. Whereas this other company, it was like, okay, well, we have this meeting. There might be 4 interviews. We're going to probably do 5 interviews, maybe a 5th where you meet the CEO. And I'm like, bitch, I need money now. What the fuck y'all doing? You know what I mean? Like, come on. So there was that. That didn't work out. And thankfully, it didn't work out because they would have wanted a lot more of my time for probably about, I think, like $90K. And at the time, it would have been, I made more money that year because I was able to work 2 jobs. So I took a job that was paying $15K less, and I was able to make, of course, that all up because I was able to work a night job, and that allowed me to get out of a lot of debt, and get into the house I'm in now. So, that's the screening call. That's where you talk and you start to, you don't go crazy with the impressing, but it's a conversation and you try to be relaxed. It's kind of hard when you first start it. I find admitting when you're nervous helps because then the other person, is sympathetic / empathetic, depending on how they feel and who they are, to you, and they take it easy on you. And also they consider that as well. I don't use it as a tactic now, but sometimes I'll be like, listen, man, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of nervous, but if I am really nervous, but if I'm not, I'm not going to say it to like try and undermine or, get on their good side or something like that. I try not to do that. Try not to do too many tactics or anything like that. Some people can sniff it out and eventually it might show as you're not being genuine. Second phase. So second phase in some cases, is integrated or combined with the first phase. And second phase is usually something like a tech interview. So where you actually start talking technology, you get asked questions about what you're going to do in the job. Do you know these type of DNS records? Like, I was asked, is like, do you know DKIM and DMARC? And I was like, damn it, it pissed me. It pissed it. I was like, I can't believe I don't know this right now. I know that they're DNS records that have to do with security, but I don't know in terms of enough to say, hey, I can configure it. And that really, I really thought I did bad because of stuff like that and other things. You know, it turns out I actually did better than I thought. Like, supposedly I killed the second interview, and I just like thought I bombed it. And I was just like, you know, I told the recruiter, hey, listen, thank you. Oh, also, after every one of these phases, always send a follow-up email to your point of contact for the job. Sometimes, I'm not going to lie, to a fault, I've sent a follow-up email to the person that actually is the tech lead or what have you. And sometimes that's a little bit too much, and it's not a good way of, it's probably not a good thing. I'm not going to lie. It kind of shows like, wow, like I felt, sorry. It might show, and because this is how I felt that I might have, like, you know, made it even worse, my case even worse, because it's like, okay, this guy didn't know this. Thank God we didn't hire him. So that's a bit of a crapshoot. Do it if you want to, but also it could be like, oh, okay, this guy has developed in a short period of time. So you roll the dice on that one. But the point of contact, so that would be the recruiter, maybe somebody in HR, the recruiter, somebody in HR, or even the person that did the original interview, or the headhunter, the person that's trying to place you in a job or something like that. Always send them an email. Say, hey, listen, you know, I appreciate your time. Please give me any feedback. I always ask for feedback of how I can make myself better, right? This does two things. One, it gets you feedback. It tells you where you screwed up and how bad you did and where you could have done a little bit better. So take that feedback. You know, you'll feel a way about it. It is what it is, but take that feedback. It's okay. Whoa, that's funny. My last commit was the last day I worked at this place. Wow, Ski. That's funny. I still have it up on my screen here from earlier. So take that feedback and then use it. What I do now is I take that feedback saying, okay, you need more cloud experience. So I will be doing things where working with AWS and getting to know that a little bit better in my free time. And hopefully I'll do some streams about that as well if I feel comfortable in terms of, like, you know, exploring it and stuff like that. And there's some pretty good, there's a lot of good, I should say, videos and tutorials about that. So you can definitely get that right now, just by searching it, like, you know, searching AWS, SNS, and SQS. So the SNS is the simple notification service. SQS is the simple queuing service, and how those work in tandem in terms of a event-driven microservices architecture, right? So everything is events. Like, you get a notification, then that notification puts something maybe in a queue or sends an email or sends information to multiple locations. And then if it's in a queue or different types of queues, those queues have topics, and those topics get consumed by subscribers. So that's more of a pub sub architecture. Like, I learned these things because I had to do an interview, and, you know, they told me about this stuff, and I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, I've never been challenged with it, so I never really had to deal with it. But now it's like, I'm challenged with it, and now I can start to consume it. And I send emails saying, hey, listen, man, this is crazy. I started learning about this, and this, blah, 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 to show that, hey, I can. What the hell? What is that doing there? Sorry, there's like a truck that's just stopped out there. Weird. Yeah, it's like I can do this type of stuff, and, like, you know, I can pick all this information up, you know, blah blah blah. So that's kind of like that follow-up email. That's a bit of a crapshoot that you can do. And I'll try and summarize this after, because I'm just kind of like ranting about this type of stuff. And hopefully you guys are picking up one or two little things that'll help you in terms of the interview process. So this is not really structured, but in any means, except for the fact that, you know, you have these multi-interview phases, and I've been through them all with multiple jobs. And this is where you're asking for, you know, above average pay, and above average pay, don't get it twisted, is like 60 grand plus in terms of what you're doing. And in some cases, you know, getting into the six figures. So that's another thing. learning about different things and things you didn't know before, but you start to get challenged on in a sense, or you start to take on as a challenge, and you never knew about it before, and hopefully this job will allow you to learn it. And to be honest, in this second interview, you'll see a lot of people, you know, people will be stone faced. They're going to expect you to know it. You can't just say, oh, well, yeah, I had to deal with this before. And, you know, hear you typing real quick or something like that, like, yeah, so I was this, they know you're searching for shit, right? Like, second interview, tech interview, I could see there's one guy, and I was like, listen, Mike, don't try and impress him. It is what it is. If you don't get this, figure something else out. It is what it is, right? At this stage, for me, I try not to do too much in terms of research before an interview. It's like, if I know it, I know it. And I try to say, hey, listen, I don't know this, I don't know that, so on and so forth. So they can get a proper estimation of what you do know and what you don't know. And also, how do you handle not knowing that is another thing too. In terms of somebody saying, hey, listen, I see that you have, because a lot of times what they'll do is they'll read your resume. So a lot of people will put stuff on their resume that's BS or have someone else write it. So that's another problem with, like, when people write your resume for you or something like that. You need to read your own resume and understand it like a book, as if you wrote it, if you have someone else write it. But if you wrote it yourself, you also need to just, know it. I've been in interviews where the guy, the resume is so old, and I'm looking for jobs, and I'm like, I don't even read my own resume, because it's like, I did it, I put it on there. And, they'll go ahead and they'll be like, the guy looked at me one time, he's like, I'm just reading your resume. And I was like, shit. I was just like, yeah, I'd had to deal with this, this, and this. And I wasn't even lying on it. It's just, you do stuff in the past, and it's like, man, I haven't dealt with that in 2 years, but I've dealt with it, and I can jump right back into it. Like, I'm the type of person where I can remember it. He doesn't know that, though, nor does he understand that. And in an interview, this is not the place for you to say, hey, listen, I can figure it out. So you'll run into that too. So understand and know your resume, because when it goes to the technical portion of it, they're actually reading your resume, highlighting certain things they want to ask you questions about, because it also might pertain to the job at hand. And they say, okay, this guy doesn't know it or does know it, or he could help us on this, or we're going to have to teach him this, so they're gauging that. As I was saying, the one guy, he was asking me questions. And one thing he was like, it was kind of like, oh man, he's the hard guy that I have to, like, not impress, but like, if it's like, you battling that one boss that has 3 different phases or whatever, or 3 different heads, or, you have those bosses in games where it's like you fighting twins or something like that, and they have various different attacks or something like that. I think there's, like, Hollow Knight is the one where they had the 3 sisters or something like that, which is crazy. I watched the gameplay on that. But sometimes you have to deal with a 3-headed monster, right? And one of those heads is a nicer person, one of those heads is a mellow person, and one of those heads is like that motherfucker there that you gonna have to defeat. So he asked me, he was like, can you show me any experience of PowerShell, blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, well, yeah, give me a second. So I looked at something, and then he had made a remark. He was just like, oh, tell me about your experience with PowerShell, so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, okay, well, give me a second. Let me look something up. And he's like, well, I'm kind of asking just for your experience. You don't really have to show me. I don't know what you have to look for or show me. He didn't say anything like that, but you can see there was like he was just like, I'm asking for your experience. You should just know this. Like, do you not know this? It's like, that's where that start question comes in. And if you're not strong in terms of your or if you're not confident in your knowledge, strong in your mindset and will and focus, that could break you in an interview. That could cause a serious issue. So that was one thing that I saw. But I wasn't, deterred by that, because I had, quick links, and I sent them a link to a GitHub link of like, okay, these are all these Windows scripts. And I was like, I wrote all those scripts in there, right? Like, these are the scripts, these are the PowerShell commands and everything else like that, explaining like, hey, listen, I wrote this PowerShell command, and the way the reason I run a bat file is because I want to get past the shell execution, or the PowerShell external shell execution restriction that the systems have by default. So I don't want to disable that in PowerShell, which could leave the system vulnerable, and then go from there. So one thing you can do is you can actually execute PowerShell from CMD, and that's one way I do it. So showing him that, and like he was just like, oh, okay. And then later on I learned, like, hey, yeah, this guy Colin, in like the follow-up call after that, because I thought I didn't do well, but the recruiter calls back. He says, okay, how do you think you did? And I started explaining to him. He's like, well, Colin actually said he wrote some things down that you said. And I was like, holy shit, they was learning from your boy. They was learning from your boy in the technical interview. I was telling them shit they don't know, baby. But it's like, you have these conversations with them, and I didn't feel confident. And I try to be also humble when I talk to people about this type of stuff. I don't want to be meek or anything, but it's like I don't want to be like I don't want to be meek. But I also don't want to act like, hey, listen, I know I did great. So afterwards, he told me, he's like, no, you actually did it. And they said you knocked it out of the park, and they were all really impressed and wanted to move to the third stage. Another thing is, in dealing with that three-headed monster, as I kind of said, there's a person that's really kind of maybe the aggressive one, or not the aggressive one, but the one that you feel is probably the biggest hurdle out of the three, the strongest of the three opponents, if you will, or strongest of the three heads of Cerberus or the Hydra. Or Cerberus, really. And then, of course, there's the mellow one, and then there's the one that's kind of like helping you. Well, Cerberus wants to eat you, but, you get the point. So the one that wanted to help me was like the guy that did the original screening. Like, I guess I impressed him enough. And, I started asking questions, and I had like one main question, and I asked it to, I expected all three of them to answer. And then, we had the conversation after the fact. And, that kind of impressed them in terms of how like they said, I was interested. But that one person, he was like, you could see that he was, quote unquote, giving me general questions that I should just be able to knock out of the park. And with those questions, you not just deliver, but you over deliver, or deliver with a little bit of zest, meaning that you knock those ones out of the park, or you hit a nice, you get a good hit off of it. You get some good yardage off of that. And that helps, you can't always knock everything out of the park. And then sometimes, you can't knock everything out of the park. Sometimes you want to just get a couple yards, if you will. Like, you can't always score a touchdown, just get a couple yards, get a first down. And what that helps is that makes the person that is maybe the more aggressive one out of the three, because the last two interviews I've had is like three people. One interview at this roofing material company, the fourth interview that I had, and I thought I did okay, but it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was 4 people. I was on one side of the table, and then there was 4 people on the other side. Yeah, it was like 4 people. And like the one guy that was asking me, like, he was kind of the hard ass a little bit in that scenario, because he had worked for the parent company or whatever, and he was their director. He was like, I even impressed him, and he started laughing and chuckling and shit, because they were like, listen, you want to be a developer. We kind of see it, and we don't want to get a system admin guy that wants to be a developer. I ultimately said no, because I was the number one choice for that, but I ultimately said no, but they had to go with the second guy or what have you. But, even in that interview, like, I was just knocking stuff out of the park, bro. It was just like, boom, answer this person, make eye contact. Don't look down too much. If you do look down, you think about it, you try to come up with something as best as possible. Also have those default answers that you may have. Don't try and use those default answers too much, because after a while, it's just going to be like, oh, okay, this guy can't answer shit. So there's things like that, man. So like, there's a lot of things in terms of dynamics. And this is why, those interview courses are pretty good. Also, just going to a lot of interviews is also a good thing too, because after a while, you can answer better every time. So you may not get the job that you want, like, oh man, I really wanted this developer job. But then it's just like, okay, I'm not at that. I didn't get that first developer job, but the next one, I'm going to motherfucking it. I'm going to do so well. And this is where this is why you ask for feedback. So in terms of the aggressive one, I talked to the recruiter. He said, man, yeah, you did very well. The next one is a cultural interview. So sometimes they do these cultural interviews. And I was just like, I've never had a quote unquote cultural interview separate, but this is the first time for everything. But I treated it more of a conversation. And in some cases, I actually took over a little bit in the whole conversation as well. Some people like to see that you can actually exhibit not aspects, but exhibit traits of a person that is a leader, somebody that can actually, step into the fire and say, oh, wow, it's chilly in here, that type of shit, right? Go into the lion's den and start riding that motherfucker like it's a donkey or some shit, or a horse, because donkeys are crazy. I've been watching a lot of Casual Geographic. That kid is amazing. I love him. He's so hilarious, bro. Casual Geographic. I think he's got like 1.3 million subscribers on YouTube or something like that. He's amazing. Anyways, so I did well, did better than I thought. And, after every phase, I always, follow up and say, hey, listen, thank you for your time. Tell everybody I said, thanks for that. Just so, hopefully they do pass that on. Even if in the event that maybe they do pass it on and you don't do well, maybe you can be, called back for later consideration. Never burn your bridges, curse people out, or not respond to an email. Say, hey, understood. Thank you for your consideration. If there's any feedback that you can give me about my resume, about how I handled certain things, please let me know. I want to make myself better. And people like that in terms of the people that you have contact with. They like to see that, oh, okay, this person is actually trying to make an effort to make it not only he's taking it well, but he's taking it well. He wants constructive criticism, and he also wants to take that criticism so he can improve himself. So those things you all would always want to do, because people will possibly come back to you, put you in another file. The ones that quote unquote really care and do their job fairly well. So, moving on to the third interview, man. In this case, it was a culture interview. Sometimes your third interview is a higher level tech interview. You start talking algorithms and start doing more testing. They say they might give you a project or a problem or something like that, especially if you're a developer. In this case, it was a culture interview, because the technical interview is good enough and essentially you pass that test. Now they just want to see if you're a fucking asshole or not. Like that's basically what it is. They want to see like who you are as a person, like, and will you be Me Too'd in a couple months? I mean, are you going to sexually harass your coworker via a Teams conference meeting? Like, are you going to make an obscene joke? Are you going to be that guy that has his camera on while he's stroking himself or getting lotion to stroke himself? Like that in that one video? Yes. There's a couple of videos like I think that really happened. And there's a video where I think it was like a Pornhub video. It was hilarious. Or Pornhub ad. So that was pretty funny. But they start asking questions and poking and prodding. And, in this case, this is where you start to, if you can, in terms of your personality, you start to shine, if you will, and then give them decent answers. Also ask them questions, about, the company and things like that. I didn't have many questions. And, I started off with a joke. I let the person talk. You listen intently. You look at your camera or the screen. For me, I look at the screen so they kind of see that I'm looking at the screen, meaning that I'm looking at their face while they talk. And then in terms of actually looking at the camera, when I answer, I try to look at the camera so they can kind of make quote unquote eye contact with me, if you will, right? And if you have everything situated properly, and the camera's in the right place, you can actually have proper eye contact. Another thing is camera positioning. You want your camera at eye level, right? You want them to see your face. You don't want it too high, because that just is awkward and they see your hairline and into your head. And then you don't want it too low, because then it looks like you're looking down at them. So you're doing a lot of these interviews and they're virtual now and they're not in person. So now it's like you don't have the luxury of everybody being a similar height when they sit down, or being at eye level at least when they sit down. Now you have to your environment matters, your background matters. I got asked about my background. You guys have seen in other videos, Fern Gully and my sunroom. and they start asking about your environment and all this other stuff. And they're like, is that a background just, like one of the ladies asked, is that a background just moving and stuff like that? And I was like, no, those are actual plants. And it's like, wow, yeah, it's really nice. And I was like, yeah, thank you very much. And later on, I showed them something else too, because they asked all types of questions. And it's good to show them a couple of things too. You listen intently, and you say, oh, okay, great, nice, but what you want to do is, after the introduction is made, after the introductions are made, maybe you want to break the ice. But part of the things you want to do is actually listen to what they're saying and maybe regurgitate that back as a joke in some way, shape, or form, or as a talking point. It's like, hey, listen, hey, Rebecca, I just heard you say this, this, and this, and that made me feel like this, and think about this is what they want in this case, in this cultural interview, because they want to understand me and who I am as a person, but also they want to understand, more importantly, how I will interact with them and their coworkers and colleagues. So that's another thing, right? And you want to be genuine, because it will come out. Yeah, it will. Oh, I thought I heard a knock. Sorry. It will come out at some point in time. So, listen intently, use what they say, not against them, but in conversations with them. I like to start things off or insert a joke here. Hopefully you could time it right. That's me personally. Also, you don't want to push too many jokes. Also, you don't want to fake laugh. You want to have actual genuine moments of laughter. So one thing I did is the person that was leading the whole cultural interview, she asked, like, Mike, are there any things that you don't want to talk about? Also, like, your name, like my name is Michael, right? It's like, hey, Mike, how do you want to be addressed, as Mike, Michael, so on and so forth? So my joke, because everybody asks that, because there's so many ways you can say Mike, or like a word like Richard, like you're not going to say, hey, listen, just call me Dick, call me Dick, but don't call me a dick. Like, maybe you can make like, that, but like nobody's going to call you Dick though, like just stick with Richie, or something like that. And that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable with you, and they see how personable you are as well, and how they can actually vibe with you, and how you you're that puzzle piece that fits in. That's ultimately what they want to see. But in terms of the name, I said, hey, listen, I don't really mind. My usual joke is, listen, as long as women can call me Mikey. The only man that can call me Mikey is my father, right? Like, if a man calls me father, if a man calls me Mikey and he's not my father, you're kind of weird, except for one friend, but he just, I just accept it from him. Shout out to my boy Cecil, of Coconut Consulting in South Florida. Call him for your consulting needs in the South Florida Tri-County area, West Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade. Shameless plug. He did not pay me for it. That's just my boy. But Coconut Consulting for sure. So, I make a little joke. But I didn't make that joke this time, right? Because there was two Michaels. There's myself and there's another guy in there. And he had been working for the company for like 10 years, I think. And he didn't talk much because, he was muted. He had one or two questions, but he'd actually also told me that he reached out to the team lead that I had talked to in the first two interviews, the screening and the leader of the team for the technical. And he's like, yeah, Mike killed it in terms of the second interview. And I was like, whoa, okay, I didn't think I did well. And I mentioned that, right? And that was a little bit of vulnerability, because I really did feel that way. I didn't think I did well. So, the joke that I said is, they're like, any restrictions or anything else like that you don't want to talk about. So I took this as a point of to add some humor, as well as add some interest to who I am, and a little bit about me. I said, as long as you don't ask why I owned a hair salon and never got a haircut, and darn it, what was the other one? Oh, why I owned a hair salon for 3 years, or owned a hair salon and never got a haircut, and when I sleep, because I don't, right? Because that eventually always happens when I tell people like how much stuff that I do. Like, whoa, you did this. I was like, how the hell did you do that? Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, that now it's like that piques their interest. They're like, wow, you owned a hair salon, you did this and all this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, I did this, This is something that, you know, my passion is business, and I've ran businesses, I've developed teams, I've got people to invest, and so on and so forth. Some people like that, some people don't. You know, like you know, I ran a IT consulting company for 10 years. You know, my current age is 36. I did this for, you know, X amount of years, and so on and so forth. You know, like you start talking and saying these different things, and what it does is when you start talking, right, and you got to know when to stop. I know I'm on the stream myself and I've been blabbing for almost an hour straight, but you got to know when to stop, to pause, to allow them to interact with you. Also to keep sight and keep focused on the questions that they're asking, right? You're not just rambling on, because they can see that and get annoyed, but also you're talking, and it also is entertaining to them as well, you know, and it's infotainment, if you will, like, because now they're like, okay, we know a little bit more about you, and this person is, you know, if he was a canvas, he's definitely colored. Okay, well, that's probably not the right thing to say. Anyways, you know, if he was a bag of tricks, that's not a good one either. If he was some chicken, he'd be well seasoned. Hell yeah, there you go. It's probably not a good one either, because I use a lot of jerk seasoning, and you are G. Anyways, continuing on, but things like that, you know, saying like little quips, and, you know, being witty, you know, and having some bit of a banter with them, and, you know, and they all like talk and joke and stuff, like talk and joke with you. I guess Maddox likes that one, but, you know, they all talk and joke with you, right? And like they start to see, like, you know, oh, okay, this person I can talk to and I feel comfortable. And I was like, you know, I tell people all the time, it's like, hey, listen, you know, I got a heart. In this case, the lady said, I have a hard stop at 2, but, you know, you guys can continue on, and so on and so forth. And hopefully we can have a good talk. And I was like, well, listen, you know, I'm a bit of a blabber. I'm not going to lie. You know, you prepare them for stuff like that, right? Because I am a bit of a blabber, as you can hear in this stream and other streams. I am a bit of a blabber in some cases, and I talk a lot, and I express myself, and I share things about myself that other people would keep secret, but I share things about myself in terms of, you know, you getting to know me, and you start to really, quote unquote, develop some type of trust, because it's like, oh, this person really is what he says he is, in a sense. So anyways, I did that. Know when to stop talking, because you have to have those pauses to allow somebody to talk. Also, reading faces and body language. And, you know, you can see when someone wants to ask a question, and you say, oh, okay, hey, listen, Mary, I'm sorry, Mary, did you want to say something? And like, you stop, right? Because I told him, I was like, listen, I'm a bit of a blabber, but I'm also a really good listener. Also telling them, you know, the dark side of me, right? Like, you know, the coaching side, like, you know, things that I'm proud of, a little bit that I've done. And one thing that the leader of the talk said, this culture interview said, is that, wow, you said a lot with minimal words. And I was like, whoa, okay, cool. Thank you very much. Because I tried to stop talking. And I guess that's from like the BGS hangout days, man, because BGS used to be like shorten it up. Right. And I was like, so I took that as like, you know, constructive criticism. So now when I'm on panels, I shorten this shit up. I don't freaking keep talking. So, hey, listen, man, the manosphere has helped me. That's one thing. That's funny. But so with this, you know, in this talk, she was like, hey, listen, you said a lot, and there's a lot of stuff that, you know, we want to talk about. So I didn't talk too fast. It's fairly eloquent, clear. Kept it clean in terms of what I talked about. And they started asking questions about, like, okay, your personality and your beliefs and how you look at things. Do you ever think, you know, I talked about my previous interview and how I felt, and they were like, well, listen, you know, imposter syndrome. And I was like, well, imposter syndrome is not a bad thing. More, the only thing that's really bad is your mindset. And they liked my take on it. And I was just like, listen, you know, if your mindset is negative and you talk about how you're an imposter, well, you know, okay, that you might feel imposter syndrome has to deal with inadequacies, right? So if you feel like a person that shouldn't be there or shouldn't be in this certain situation, and I also not dumbed it down, but put it in the vernacular or made it personal when I talked about imposter syndrome and my mindset. And I was like, well, it's kind of the same thing in relationships. I mentioned it, and then I mentioned it, And then I came back and circled around on it. And I said, well, you know, when you talk about imposter syndrome, it's kind of like when you're dealing with relationships. Sometimes you look at your person, your significant other, the person you're with, or what have you, and you're like, you know, you start asking the question, why am I like, how are you with me? Like, why are you with me? You know, you start asking, you know, you start to question yourself, and you say, hey, listen, you know, I shouldn't be with this person. This person is beautiful, or this person is nice, or this person is something I'm not, quote unquote, right? And it like, and people can understand and resonate with that, because it's like, yeah, I've been in that situation and I never thought of that as imposter syndrome. And it's not technically imposter syndrome, but at the core of imposter syndrome is inadequacy. You don't feel you're smart enough to work at Google. You don't feel you're smart enough to work at XYZ company writing front end code. You don't think you're smart enough to do back end, full stack, what have you, or be that database engineer, right? But at the same time, if somebody else looked at the work you did, they'd be like, yo, Mike, you know, you've never failed, right? You know, like, not to say I haven't failed, but like, they're talking to you like, yo, listen, every time we had a problem, you fixed it, or you worked hard to get it done, or making research and blah, 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 so on and so forth. Like, you know, you start to realize things about yourself. So when I talked to them about imposter syndrome and what they found somewhat, I guess, profound, or that resonated with them is probably a better word, because that's what they said. They said, yeah, you know, it's kind of like your mindset. And I was like, yeah, mindset is very important. And, you know, I mentioned things about, like, you know, the stuff I do on these streams, and talk about the Black community, so on and so forth, you know, and I thought that was important. And I, you know, just kept it real. Like, I talk about Black issues, you know, like, you know, I'm not just woke or virtue signaling. Like, no, listen, I'm really out here trying to help my community and help my brothers and help the kids that I'm with. And also, one other thing I did is, you know, you start to show not confidence, but you start to show you ain't fucking with no lackluster bullshit ass dude. Like, I'm that nigga, straight like that. You know, like, I'm that fucking dude. I've had businesses. You could say they failed, but I put skin in the game. You know what I mean? I wanted to make a circumcision joke, but, you know, I'm not gonna do that. It's just like, I put skin in the game on this shit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you ain't fucking with no bullshit ass dude. Like, I've had X, Y, and Z. I've had this and that, so on and so forth. So, you know, I mentioned, like, and I mentioned it in a certain way, but I try to do this, and it's not really establishing dominance, or it's not totally establishing dominance. It's partially that, but it's really establishing, you know, a higher level. It's like a higher expectation of what this person expects in terms of pay, what this person expects in terms of respect from other people, you know, and managing expectations of, you know, who you are, and so on and so forth. So one of the things I did is I made a story. I mentioned a story about, you know, when I volunteered, and I talked about, why did I volunteer? Why did I do coaching? Why did I do all this stuff, right? And, you know, I talked about an experience I had with one of the players, and the players, you know, they saw me with, you know, the car that I had at the time, which was a 7 Series. I still love that car to this day. They saw the car I had in 7 Series, and, you know, they saw that I went to the same school just like them, so on and so forth. And it was a joke. It was a funny story. But I was talking about something I've talked about on YouTube, which is exposure, right? Like, a lot of people are not dumb, or they're not in the situation that they are in terms of wealth, because they're not smart. Like, they do and exhibit so many smart things, but they don't have the environment and the exposure and the support to actually excel and reach those higher heights, if you will. You know, so that's what happens a lot to. I think that's what happens to a lot of people, is just lack of exposure. And I've talked about that in previous videos. You can search the channel for that. But in talking about exposure, saying, hey, listen, you know, I trivialized the car, right? Because the car really wasn't important. right? And also it shows, you know, my growth, because I say, hey, listen, you know, I had the car, the superficial stuff, and it was nice because it shows something. But the kid said, hey, listen, man, wow, I'm gonna start reading now. And it was, they laughed, but in my head, you know, I reenacted what I did. I took off my glasses and I blinked real quick just to give them that effect and put it back on. And I was like, okay, if that's what it takes for you to read and you're a senior in high school and now you want to start reading, I did my job as a coach. And what that shows them is like, okay, you're willing to show, lead by example and show how to do it, not just talk about how to do it, but to show how to do it. And they like things like that when you're having, you know, again, we're talking about culture interviews or personality interviews. This is more of a personality test. And actually every call with everybody is a personality test. Every email is a personality test. So understand that. Every interaction is a personality test, if anything, and they want to see who you are, and it's going to show. And that's another reason why they have all these different interviews and stuff like that too, in terms of like your interactions with them. So I established some little bit of respect, dominance, higher, set some type of expectations of what I expect in terms of the lifestyle that I live and or used to live, and how I've also changed as well. And then another thing was they asked about environment, and I give them a couple things like in terms of for them to think about. And I said, in terms of my philosophies, and I said a lot of people. I told them, they're like, do you travel or something like that? And I was like, well, I used to travel as a kid, but to be very honest, as an adult, I really don't travel. I don't like to travel. I think a lot of people take vacation. I think a lot of people that go on vacations, they're really just distracting themselves from the environment that they live in because they're going to have to come back to it. And, that kind of like, they felt that. You could tell that they felt that because they shook their heads a little bit. Excuse me, and they moved around. One of the many things, maybe not they felt it as hard as other people or as other things that I said or what have you, but they felt when I said, hey, your environment is important because a lot of people take vacations to escape their environment and to escape their environment instead of making it better. And that really makes people face who they are and what they do and so on and so forth. So that I think that's important in interviews like this at that level is talking about like, okay, this is what you do with this is how this person thinks. This is how Michael or the candidate thinks, and this is what that interview is about too. All right, so moving on. What else happened in that interview? And I'm trying to tell you the experience I had to prepare you guys so you can actually come up with maybe answers, retorts, or just also have a relaxed mind about it too. Yeah, you asking them questions. That's probably one of the last things. So I usually save this one question now. My question, my thought question. I save that for later interviews. Mr. Dixon, what's up, brother? Appreciate you showing out, man. Yeah, man, definitely. Hey, bro, when you're ready, man, I know we've been talking and everything like that. Guys, hopefully we can start doing some tandem combo coding stuff. I don't know if we'll do more stuff in the background, but definitely, hopefully it'll be like some really cool content because me and Richard have done some stuff like that with JS Fiddle and helping him out with some other projects that he's worked on, and definitely want to be what's it called? I definitely want to do that and work on a project with him too. And I think that's fun, man. That's like fun when you're working with somebody, a colleague, somebody that, is a part of the space and everything else like that, man. It's deeper than code, man. It's deeper than code. That type of shit. So I definitely, I'm kind of geeked about that, man. And when you're ready, brother, hey guys, send Mr. Dixon your prayers, your support, your, just say it out loud, bro. Like, yo, I wish you all the best. I wish you all the best, in what you're doing and stuff like that. Cause he's really going hard in the paint, brother. Like this brother's going hard in the paint and some of the stuff he's doing. And yeah, bro, he's going to be a dude that I'm going to be like, definitely I want to keep him a part of the circle. Cause I'm going to have to borrow money from him. Like, yo, listen, it ain't loan me $5. It's like, yo, loan me a 5-pack. Loan me 5 racks. Rich. Richie Rich, like the way the money he's going after, man, bro. So show him support in terms of like comment section for those that are listening on the playback, and then also show support and just saying, hey, listen, man, put him in your prayers, or just say, hey, yo, I wish Richard Dixon the best. In terms of the universe, I do believe we're connected to a certain extent, and trust me, man, he will get it in one way, shape, or form. Definitely. I think it's gonna be great. So great for him. So yeah, man, show him support in one way, shape, or form. So yeah, moving on, man. So in terms of like, this, and Richard, listen to the playback on this, man. You're gonna have to deal with this in these multi-tiered interviews and stuff like that. It's not just like algorithms and all this other stuff, but also there's the part where you talk about your you have to talk about your personal experiences and quote unquote a lot of the stuff is like personality. Portion of it is personality and not just technical, but personality in terms of who you are as a person and talking with people, who you are as a person and dealing with challenges and adversity and dealing with technical issues, which you're going to have to deal with. And then also the technical portion of it is like, can you execute and actually fix the problems, things like that. Getting people to believe in you, selling yourself, in a sense. I want to say be a corporate whore, but no. But hey, man, that's how it is, man. You making $15 and that person's making 75 off of you. I know that number because that happened to me, and that's like another reason why I was a consultant for so many years, because I saw that. All right, so moving on. Culture interview. Being willing to ask questions, talking to them, having your camera in the right place, talking about your environment, also showing them in your environment. So I was talking about the environment question, and they were like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I was like, yeah, like I picked up my camera and I just panned around the room. I showed them my skateboard wall where I had my knickknacks and everything. And then I was like, yeah, listen, like this is my view. So I showed them my lake at the time, and it's during the day. So that's cool. So they could see like, whoa, okay, this guy's got his own freaking lake, like, yeah, it's like, yeah, my pond, like that's mine, So like little things like that. It's not I don't want to say it's establishing dominance, but it's managing expectations and showing them, hey, listen, this is not like, it's not just your regular person. This person really thinks and is thoughtful, and he can answer quickly. In my case, not everybody, it's not maybe what you're comfortable with. And then this is the last thing. So talking about asking questions to the other people. I in the beginning I talked about like, hey, listen, this is going to be in the beginning of the third phase of the interview. I talked about, this is a conversation, right? So that not lets people's guards down, but it's not, I say it relieves stress. It loosens things up. It, softens things and takes out the rigidity of it, like question, answer, right? You're not going to do that for a long period of time. If anything, you're going to have a conversation with them because, again, humans are gregarious creatures. Shout out to Sherlock Holmes, the Sherlock Holmes Diary Tales that was on Netflix a couple years ago. It's an awesome series, and even like I think the guy it's not Jude Law, but it's one of the guys that the guy that played in Gattaca, and he was in the Gattaca movie, and he was the actual person that was crippled. I forgot his name, but he played a young horse stableman in one of the episodes of that series. Awesome series, love it. But Sherlock Holmes said something that stuck with me. He's like, humans are gregarious creatures, much like horses. And what that meant, and I looked it up, gregarious, I can't spell it now, but gregarious means that we're very social creatures, meaning that we always talk to one another and things like that. So we're very social creatures. And when you know that you're a social creature, when you understand that humans are social creatures, you can actually quote unquote use that to your advantage. Again, like, I don't want to act like I was, playing 3D chess with these motherfuckers. Like, no, I was just having a conversation, but I was also aware of what this conversation meant, and that a lot of things were not trying to hide things, but you also have to reveal, not just hiding things, because sometimes you do have to, like, there's something, you're not going to say like, yo, listen, my two favorite vices are my two vices that I'm not ashamed of are strippers and ice cream. Like, you're not gonna say that in a fucking interview unless trying to get a rap contract. But like, you're not gonna say that shit. But I did talk about like, hey, listen, I have a bit of an addiction to Haagen-Dazs, like, and make that as a joke. And I'm like, they're laughing. I'm like, bitch, I'm serious. Like, bitch, I like ice cream. But it's a little bit of vulnerability, which they did mention. They were like, listen, Mike, we do like your vulnerability and your honesty, and I want to say candor, like Ed says, but we wanted, they applauded me on that, and they said thank you very much for that. So in that call, the last thing is my question, and this is something I made a video about a while back, and they didn't hear about the question. And I was like, hey, listen, I usually always ask this one question, at every interview, and it helps me understand. So this is how I do this. And again, this question is made from me. No, sorry. What it's become is a way for me to develop, or I developed it into a way for me to understand the people that I'm talking to. First, impress them because it makes them think and it sticks with them. Two, understanding who they are and how they think about it. And three, impress them with the answer that I give them, or the observations, and show my keen sense of observation in people, right? So that's a nice thing, right? Like it really sticks with some people, and sometimes it's a deciding factor. So you want to try and use these things as weapons or arsenals, if you will. I don't want to make it seem like it's too like insidious in terms of like, they fell into my trap. But at the end of the day, bitch, I'm trying to get this job. Y'all fucking or not? You fucking or not? Like, you give me this check or nah, bro? So you want this check, so you gotta do what you gotta do, right? So I preface the question. I say, hey, listen, I always ask this in my interviews, and I want to it helps me understand you and who you are and how you think. It's not all encompassing or anything else like that, but it just gives me a little bit of a peek into your mind and the way you look at things. There is no right or wrong answer, because that helps them, right? Because now they're thinking like, yeah, I'm getting quizzed, because I've seen where people react to this and they like it because they smile about it and they think about it and everything else like that. And they want to get the answer right. But he's like, you tell them, hey, there's no right or wrong answer. If you can't answer it, that's okay. Like, I'm not looking for anything crazy, because some people are like, well, yeah, I thought you wanted a more philosophical meaning. No, I want to gauge you. I want to understand you. And it's just like, it ain't no fun when the rabbits got the gun, bitch. Because now they're getting interviewed, right? And they like that type of stuff, because it's like, whoa, this person is thought-provoking and things like that. So anyways, so I say, hey, listen, I always ask this question at the end of an interview, and it helps me understand you and a little bit more about you, and just peek into your mind. So there's no right or wrong answers. And then I go into the question, right? I don't say, okay, you're ready. I was like, all right, in today's society, what's the purpose of a bookshelf? Now that question is very, like, the delivery you see, smooth, because I've done it so many times. It's smooth. It doesn't presume a lot. It doesn't make you like, it catches you off guard. But you also understand that there's deeper meaning. Like, this motherfucker wants an answer from you, right? Like, but what should I give him? What is the purpose of a fucking bookshelf? It's not like asking, a very touchy-feely question like, okay, do you believe in God? Or what's the purpose of a God? Because that's the next level of that question, to be honest. But and then this question is for me to understand a little bit about you. But if you say, hey, listen, what's the purpose of God? If you say in today's society, what's the purpose of God, right? If you ask that question, it's not so you can get an answer from them. It's so they can answer that themselves. You get that, right? It's not so that you can get an answer from them. Like, what's the purpose of God? That portion. I just thought about this a little bit, and I've been trying to flesh it out. So this is new. So excuse me. I'm going off on a tangent as always. It's a freaking mathematical course in this bitch. Mathematical conversation. But it's not a question that you get an answer from. It's a question that you, like, it's not a question that you get an answer, the person asking the question. it's a question where the person answers that themselves within themselves and comes to terms with it. So anyways, I asked, what's the purpose of a bookshelf? And people really think about this shit. People really be like, well, what the fuck is the purpose of a bookshelf? You know, and they start to think about, okay, what do they do with a bookshelf? You know, how do they feel about a bookshelf? What is and they really start to ask, like, yo, what is the purpose of a bookshelf? And it's like, you know, you can see it in people's minds, man. It's like a fucking Ace Ventura. It's like watching Ace Ventura. Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. Oh my God, she's the man. You know, and I get like, you know, that type of shit, right? Because I never got that the first time I fucking watched that movie, but I got it the second time. And it was just like, you really start to see like people like shit, like synapses start fucking firing because they want to get this answer right. And I'd be like, listen, it's, whoever wants to answer first, go ahead and jump in. You go real fucking calm. And it doesn't have to be that question, but it's a question that is supposed to provoke thought in them. So you start to take notes on what they say in terms of their answer, right? So for instance, do I have it? Do I have the last one I did? No, I don't. Do I have it? I think I wrote it in Google Keep. So one of the answers. Yeah, I guess I got the last one. Hold on, let me find these answers here. I guess I don't have the one from the technical interview, but I do remember one of them, right? So in the technical interview, again, I saved this for like second stage and up. I don't ask the first person this because sometimes the first person is like the first person in support when you call an AT&T or some fucking company. Like that person doesn't know shit. They're not really the person that's going to make the decision or anything else like that. Usually the second interview when you're going to higher paying jobs. So this is where those are the persons that you want to stick out as a candidate, right? So in this case, one of the people that were interviewing me, second interview asked the question. One of the guy that was, I felt, was a little bit more harder, aggressive, if you will, not aggressive, but harder person to impress. Him, when I made his assessment, when he talked about it, I started writing things like, oh, okay, consumes knowledge and moves on, is progressive, takes what he needs. And then, I don't use like inflammatory words like discard because people don't like that word, right? But like, takes what he needs and then takes whatever he needs and then moves on to the next thing, right? And he was just like, he kind of shook his head because he was smiling about it. The other person, oh, okay, comfort, consume. One guy, he was like, listen, I'll read a 1,000-page book end to end. And I was like, oh, okay, this guy's this is a brain over here. Like this is a Google. You know what I mean? You can search, you could query his fucking brain for any type of information on a certain subject matter. He becomes a subject matter expert. And I said, okay, consumer of knowledge, a person that actually finds comfort in books, so on and so forth. And also, I don't try and lie about this. Again, this is an innate skill for me. I've learned that, hey, listen, this is something that I do. I watch people and I'm okay. And I listen to people and I'm okay with that. And actually finding out more about them, my girlfriends love it, or my ex-girlfriends love it. So actually they also dislike it because then they know I look at them. I actually look at them. So, that guy was impressed, man. The other guy, he was just like, wow, okay. And they were like, oh, okay. And then, they want to know what your answer is, right? As if you have the right answer. And I was like, well, there's no right answer. It's just, this is my thought process. So the right answer, really, what they really want to know is not the answer. They want to know the purpose of the question. Because it's such a fucking simple question. There's nothing in that question that screams, this is why I'm asking it. Like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, the answer to the question of life is 42. But then they don't know, the computer gives you the answer, but you don't know the question. Right, so they want to know the question. They know the answer, right? But they don't really want to know the answer. They want to know the question. What's the purpose of life, or what have you, and why is the answer 42? So, anyways, I explained. I was like, listen, this is where it came from, and I looked at it and I say, hey, listen, we're such a technologically advanced society, and people are still looking at things in such an analog or old school way, right? And then I give them different little things. So in the third interview, one of the people, he says, I said, because I have the notes here, I actually have these. So looks at things as defined, repurposes things, looks for deeper meaning in things, right? Like just something short. It doesn't have to be, because they also see that it's like, that therapist is writing something down. And you're like, yo, what are you writing about me? Right? Because they like that too, because it shows that, you want to learn more about them because they're writing stuff about you. Right. And you don't really care so much about that. You do and you don't. But like me, I didn't really. And then the another woman in the interview, she says, using things as they are intended. Right. Because she didn't have like a quip. She was like, yeah, it's a bookshelf. And some people are just that simple when they think about, or it's just that simplistic when they think about things like, okay, that's just it. For some people, it's like it's a little bit more. It has some feeling, right? Also, the way they answer, because they're like, well, I thought you want some philosophical meaning. And it's just like, why do you think that? Along says, what up, Grizzly? Yeah, that's a very inquisitive and profound question to ask. I normally ask them about the job that you may not know from the PD, I guess, placement description. I think you're overseas, right? I'm not sure. Or position description. And also for feedback moving forward. Yeah, I mean, and that's good information. Those are like that information. I asked that during I always ask that in emails, like, hey, how can I improve myself? Did I do well on this? Or I don't think I did well. Just come with a little bit of humility, and they'll say, hey, listen, no, you did actually better than you did, so on and so forth. I think you did well. In one point, after this cultural interview, this third interview I had, or third phase of interviews, the person, he was like, yeah, listen, the person that was yes, indeed. Position description. Okay, thank you. Because I know, like, people say CV and stuff like that, and we say resume in the U.S., but I don't know. I think you're in the U.S. I'm not sure. But sometimes maybe I'm reading too much into PD, right? So, you always ask those questions and in terms of follow-up questions, in terms of feedback when you're talking to somebody and actually having emails or anything else like that. So I always ask for feedback. Hey, how can I make myself better? What can I do to my resume to stand out a little bit more? Okay, this looks like a developer and they want an administrator, right? Like that happened to me, right? Where I said system administrator, developer. Sometimes you have to have two different resumes, especially if you're a jack of all trades and you're not a subject matter expert. Also, I was vulnerable in that third meeting. I said, listen, or no, in the second meeting, I said, which is the technical interview, I said, listen, one of the problems about being a jack of all trades is that you actually are not a master of none. That you do have a problem where you get whatever information you need to and then move on, and then some people understand that. They can actually say, oh yeah, I do understand that, man. Like that is how it is, I totally feel you on that, and they can actually like empathize with you, or sympathize, empathize with you, right? Like they can understand your feelings to it, and then also put that feeling within themselves and take that on their shoulders and be like, yeah, I can see I can see how that is and how that's a problem, and I can see why you may have missed this question, right? Like, but I try to show some vulnerability. In the third interview, talking about like, hey, talking about my burnout, why I ran so many businesses and what that did to me and how it affected me, and just like showing that vulnerability, the fact that you can talk to me about something that really has affected me, and is one of the reasons why I do these streams and things like that, is because that burnout really fucks with me, that I'm not as tenacious and hungry as I was before. Although I am, it's just changing it, or it's changed the way it expresses itself. And then I have to also work through it and accept it. But it's nice to see, like when you say things like that and they see that. Again, you don't, or not again, but you don't have to do this, guys. But if the chance comes up, don't shy away from it, be honest about it. But also be comfortable, right? So, me, I'm an expressive person. I'll talk to you about things that are going on in my life, and hopefully it helps you. So that helped me in this interview. So yeah, moving on. So that question, as you said, Elaine, it's profound, and it really gets the noggin jogging, and they start to really think about it, and they really don't want to know the answer to the question or your answer because they think your answer is right since you came up with the question. But another thing is they want to understand what the purpose of the question is and how it came about. And I tell them, hey, this is the process that I used, or this is the process that how it came about, and like how it started off as something of a bit of anger and response to a recruiter from K-Force. And in that story, the guy asked me, he's like, hey, do you have a paper copy of your resume? And I thought to myself, I was like, what the fuck, I need a paper copy of my resume, bro. I could send you that shit in email. You have your iPad in front of you. In fact, why do you even have a fucking yellow notepad, bro? Use your fucking phone. Like, what are you, like, you're asking you're doing an interview about a technical position, and you're using like, bitch, you might as well be sending faxes. Like, is that what you're, and he was like, well, some people, they want to write on the resume. And I'm like, then they could print it out them damn selves. I send it to them right now. Like, like people say shit, but what it shows is that a lot of people say things and they don't think about it. I won't mention what's going on in the space or it's actually already happened in the space, but you start to see how indoctrinated people are and how programmed they are. And then when you start to ask questions like, what's the purpose of a bookshelf, or what's the purpose of God in today's society, then you really start to see their fucking programming fall apart, because they don't know how to answer those questions, because nobody's really tested them in that shape or in that fashion or that form. That shape, form, or fashion. Like, they haven't been tested like that. All they know is what they've been taught. So then when you start to say, hey, listen, what's the purpose in today's society, what's the purpose of a bookshelf? You'll be like, yeah, why do I have a bookshelf if I use Kindle? Why do I have a bookshelf if I fucking, all my course books that I bought were just PDFs, or I got the PDF version of my McGraw-Hill fucking book, fucking McGraw-Hill, those fucking big ass books. Like, why do I have that if I have certain schools that are, for instance, you have some higher end schools and stuff like that. Your kid gets, like, especially private schools, higher end private schools, your kid will get a laptop or an iPad, and that's how they teach, like that's how the information is spread now, or in some classes they actually have, a cart of some of the public schools, they'll have carts of laptops and shit, right? So I was just like, what's the point of doing this, man? Like, are you guys even fucking thinking about the shit that you do every day? So when he said that, like, I was like, when that happened, I noticed behind the guy, this K-Force recruiter, I noticed behind the guy, I was like, well, listen, I can email it to you right now. And he can see the little tension that I was having. I was like, I can email it to you right now if you want. And he was just like, well, yeah, but some people like to have it. You should always have it, right? Because he was taught that you should always have 3 copies of your resume when you go to a job interview. Bitch, for what? Like hell no. Period. Like, hell no. Why the fuck should I have a copy of my resume? Yo, like, listen, people don't even watch freaking freaking porn on their computers anymore. They're watching it from mobile devices. They're watching it from their iPads in the comfort of their own bed. Or sometimes they're casting that bitch to the TV if they a real freak. You know what I mean? Like, bitch, I want to watch this shit while I'm bumping it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, while I'm knocking this shit back. Miguel, what's up, man? Hey, Miguel has helped me out today with my stream. So hopefully in another couple of months or so, I can talk about, or I can actually, have better looking streams and shit, man. So, but check him out, man. Miguel, drop your link to your stream in the fucking chat, bro. Check him out on Twitch, man. He's an up and coming gamer, streamer, and like, yo, Miguel is my coworker at my day job, and like, I see the shit that he fucking does for his stream. And I'm like, yo, Dr. fucking Disrespect is in trouble, man. But yeah, so www.izaz.live. Yeah, go ahead and check him out. Check out his clips and stuff like that. He plays a lot of Call of Duty Warzone, and I believe some other games, right? Yeah. But yeah, definitely check out Miguel. But yeah, so like I was talking to this recruiter, and behind the recruiter, he has his cell phone, and I think he had his cell phone, and then he had a yellow pad like he was gonna write fucking notes. And I'm like, bro, you were just taught this shit. You think that's what you're supposed to do. And then I saw an empty bookshelf behind him, and I asked him straight up. I said, okay, in today's society, with all the technology that we have, what's the purpose of a bookshelf? And I wanted him to answer it, because he's like, yeah. But I wanted him to answer it, because it's like he doesn't even think about what he's saying. I was like, and he's like, well, some people like to, write on it. I was like, well, they can print it. If I email it to them, I can give them a copy, and that copy's right there. They can even read that on their computer or their mobile device, so on and so forth. I'm giving them all these reasons. He doesn't care, because listen, he's programmed to do that. So when you ask these questions, or a question like that, you preface it saying, hey, listen, there's no right or wrong answer to this question. It just helps me gauge who you are, a little bit about who you are, and peek into your mind. So don't feel forced to answer it with any type of deep meaning, just the first thing that comes to your head. And you change the way you present it. And then you say, in today's society, because if you start to say certain words, it will lead them to answer a certain way. So you want to add some mysticism, ambiguity to it, right? Like, or vague. Yeah, you want to make it a vague question, to where it's like, they can give any type of fucking answer, right? Like, it doesn't matter. So if they want to think philosophically, that means they're a person that thinks philosophically about certain things that they're not. They try to find deeper meaning into simple things. Like, you start to see how these people react, and when they start saying, they start answering a certain way, like, oh, okay, so you're a person that fucking, you impress people with your knowledge and your brain. So anyways, and then you say, hey, listen, so I took out the technological part in my different iterations when I talked about this. And I said, in today's society, what's the purpose of a bookshelf? Now, I want to say more, right? And I want them to understand. I want them to answer in a technical way, and I want them to answer in my way. But the purpose is not to answer in my way. It's to answer in their own way, so you can better understand them. And that's what this evolved to in terms of that line of questioning. Anyways, so yeah, man, I mean, that's the third interview, and that's one of the things you can do kind of to make yourself stand out. Sending them links during it's like video conference meetings. Like, I remember before I got my current job, I had, I think, 2 interviews via Teams, like video conference. Yeah, no, I had a phone interview, and then I had 1 interview via Teams where I had to have my camera on and everything else like that. And then of course, I think eventually I had the in-person. No, I had 2 interviews. I had 2 like Teams interviews, and then I had the in-person final interview, the 4th one. So, and that was that was before my current job. My current job, they're like, yeah, you got hired on the spot at Lennar. Yeah, come and talk to me real quick before make a decision. And they hired me on the spot too, and that's where I work today. I was just like, hey, listen, man, I already signed up for this job. He's like, oh, okay, that's great. So yeah, this is, what do you want for pay? And it was all right, cool. And I got to work with my best friend, so that's good. And then of course, guys like Miguel and stuff like that too. So that was good, and it really actually really was good, because I started to talk more. I started to do more web development stuff, and I was allowed to do a lot more of that, and also helped with improving certain processes in the department. So that was cool, man. Kind of hitting the ground running with a lot of stuff on that. So I talked a lot, man. These different interviews, they can come in different ways. Sometimes the first interview and the second interview are together. and like your personality, your screening interview, and your technical interview can be in the same first interview, and then your second interview could be technical and also cultural. So be prepared to have that hour of talk time, so you can actually have these interviews and things like that. So yeah, man. But that's what I've been through. Fucking hour and 40 minutes, man. Almost hour and 40 minutes into the stream here. But I hope that helps some of you guys. My mouth is getting dry and I need to go get some water. But be yourself in these interviews. I try not to study or research too much beforehand, because I want to be totally what's it called? I want to be genuine and stuff like that. Oh, okay. Dan 007 or Don 007. Bro, don't tell me about 007 movies. I gotta watch the latest one, but I'm waiting to go and see my dad. So if I do get, time, I'm gonna go down there and see it with my dad. I'm kind of pissed that they didn't put it out in November like they usually do, but I think they've held on to it for a year already. All right, so Don 007 said, Old Head taught me this is the purpose of a bookshelf, is just in case the power goes out and the piece of equipment that hasn't been updated in 10 years locks up, that books on the shelf has the answer. That book updated in 10 years locks up, that book on the shelf has the answer. Okay. So yeah, and then you would look at it as like, okay, this is a store. Like when I read something like that, right? This is a store of knowledge. This is something that is more break in case of emergency. That's what you've been taught, right? In a sense, like I'm not getting in on you or anything like that, but from your just statement, it's like, okay, so this is a break in case of emergency piece of equipment. This is something that will help me out in a jam. This is something that, I can always refer to as a backup of sorts, right? Like this is kind of like, some of these like medical billing or medical compliance, like HIPAA compliance and other compliances. They require you to have X amount of years of records back. After that, you can dump them, so in hard copy. So, right. And that would be the purpose of a bookshelf, is to keep hard copy versions of, certain people's files or something like that. So it's like, you can say that, right? Like you can, like, that's what you were taught. And that makes total sense, like, so when I look at your answer, I'm saying, oh, okay, this is a person that relies on books as a backup plan. This is a person that's prepared for anything, right? So like on your bookshelf, you might have the 2017 Rangers manual, or the 2017 Army Rangers manual, right? And that teaches you how to flank an enemy, how to set up communications, how to get hold of the high ground, stuff like that. So what just happened, right? In terms of what you just put in there, I took your answer of what the purpose of a bookshelf was, and then I've told you something maybe about possibly your thought process that you may have known. So you're like, wow, this guy sees through me. Or you may not have known, oh my God, this guy sees something that I don't. And then also, if anything, if you really if you're really interested in the person, you say, oh, okay, wow, this guy can break down certain things and interpret certain things. Or this guy's a total asshole and he interprets things improperly, or he's projecting things on me. So it depends on, who the person is and how they feel about it, tells you about yourself and themselves and things like that. So that's like the purpose of that question. That's why it's so vague and ambiguous. It's like such a mysterious question where it's just like, yeah, what's the right answer? Who am I in this world? What is this world? Does the universe exist? Does it have a consciousness? Is this a simulation? Like they start fucking asking themselves all types of fucking questions, right? And that's the purpose of it, because then you start to see, okay, this is kind of like, I always think that, if we're like human beings or robots, if, quote unquote, our creator God comes up to us, he can press like 3 fingers in the back of our spine or something. Like he puts 3 fingers on the back of our spine and then compartments start opening up like we're fucking androids, right? Because this question does that. It's like, it starts to you start to see almost the mind start to break apart, and you start to see the shell, which is the, the head, the brain casing. If you're a Ghost in the Shell fan, you start to see the brain casing come apart, and you could see the cyber brain that's within it, and you start to see what's going on in it, and you can pull that brain out and inspect it, run diagnostic on it and stuff like that. That's how I think about when, like, if I was to meet my maker would just put 3 fingers on the back of my head and open up my fucking skull like I'm a cyborg or some shit. You know what I mean? And see that there's a hamster in there and not a brain. So yeah. But thank you for that, Don 007. And yeah, shout out to Daniel Craig's 007. I heard this movie was pretty decent, man. And also I heard the female Bond was actually pretty good too. So I think that's important, man. When people virtue signal and shit like that, but in terms of like female characters, but the worst part about female characters when you virtue signal on a female character, and then she's just a shit female character because she was written poorly. It's just like, bro, there's been so many well-written female characters. If you look at a show in the past, one would be, of course, Ghost in the Shell. Major, the lead, what's it called? The lead of Section 9. I think it's Section 9. Yeah, Section 9. Who else? Damn it. And I'm talking anime here. I want to say Roanna Purcell. I think it's Blue Lagoon is the anime. And the female character in that, she's a female badass, but she's also like, there also is like, bits of vulnerability. Also, the leader of the Russian gang or the Russian syndicate in that, that's another one. Faye, like sometimes, men resonate with female or call a well-written female character as a more masculine character, but say Faye of, Cowboy Bebop. And she was a bit masculine, but she also showed, the character development or the discovering of her past and, who she really was and why she was in the situation she was in, so on and so forth. So, female characters like that, man, like that are interesting, thought-provoking, that are, well-written and have different layers and things like that. In terms of movies, I can't really remember any, but like I always I resonate with anime, and that's what I watch. So that's what I always, remember and think about. So, or I can think of, I'm even watching Kuroko no Basket or Kuroko's Basketball. And I'm rewatching that. I think it's like the second time I watched it, and I'm watching the 3rd season on Netflix, and it's freaking, the coach in that is a female character. Actually good female characters in animes. Wonder Egg Priority, which is like freaking amazing anime, and it's about a young girl, and it shows her development in terms of her coming out of her shell after her friend committed suicide, and other girls like her. Some characters are annoying, but also, characters that they show great development. And like in Wonder Egg Priority, they're all girls. The main characters are all girls. The main character is a girl, and then all the other subsequent characters, support characters, and they have their stories and stuff like that. They're all girls, and it's such a well-written anime in terms of animes. Also, another one is like I think Jellyfish Princess, which is another one, which is pretty cool, and it talks about women that are hikikomori or neets, and how they kind of like or introverts, really, as we would call them, right? And they live such an isolated life. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that the female Bond or the female agent in there was actually written pretty well, or did pretty well. So that's cool. Okay, Richard Dixon says, same with the action heroines of the from the 80s, Sarah Connor, Ellen Connor, the characters played by Cynthia Rothrock and Michelle Yao. They were tough but still feminine. Ellen Ripley. Okay. Yeah, I don't know too many movies, right? But like, those female characters, like even if you look at what was that one with Eddie Murphy and he shot the chick's toe off, like movies like that. But then you look at some of the newer movies, of course the one Star Wars, Return of the I think Return of the Last Jedi or whatever, Star Wars, and how that turned out, and it was such a fiasco in terms of there's no progression in her. She just knew the Force. She was doing high level Force activities, from the jump. And you can explain that away as like there's not too many Jedi, so she's just stronger in the Force because it's almost like the Sith rule of two. Since there's less Jedi, the Force is stronger in her or stronger in a smaller amount of individuals. So it's like you can say that, but then you know there's so many other inconsistencies in the story with that. And I'm not even like a Star Wars buff, but I know good female characters because you root for them, you like them. And I'm like, you know, I'm talking about Wonder Egg Priority, which is like a girly fucking anime, bro. Like it's not like a girly anime, but like that's an anime that a girl could watch and be like, you know, like oh, that's a girl's anime, like that type of shit. But it was actually well written, and it talked about childhood depression, dealing with suicide and childhood suicide, and how that affects people. You know, you really start rooting for the girls in the anime and things like that. Anyways, that's it, guys. You know, exactly. Sarah Connor from Sarah Connor from Terminator, and then also Sarah Connor from Terminator, and then Alien, like the Alien movies. Now, again, feminine as a feminine or a woman as more of a having more masculine traits, but just like the Alien movies, man. I forgot that lady's name, but like that was such an iconic movie, and like you know. It was a strong female character, right? Not just strong because she, you know, she's woke, but she was written fucking well. Like that's it. So exactly, Sarah Connor in Terminator had an actual arc. Some with Ripley Ripley and Aliens. Okay, yeah, Ripley and Aliens. You did just mention that. Thank you. But that, yeah, bro, this is the shit that you know you talk about. But again, you know, some of these things you say, some of the things like if we just put it back on subject here, so many things you would say in the technical interview, and some things you won't. You know, you won't talk about it. But it's probably good conversations to have with other people. And if people ask you about like you know, misogyny or misandry or no misogyny, feminist, Me Too, and all this other stuff, and they go that deep with you, and you say, hey, listen, I know many female characters, not just to say like just so you can beat them on their point, but to say, hey, listen, these are the problems that I see with it and I don't like. And you know, even Shuri and or like a lot, bro, even Black Panther, bro, like that movie I could watch again. Even Black Panther, the female characters in that, the leader of the Dora Milaje, and how she was a strong woman and she was the guard of the king, the mother, the sister Shuri, you know, like her intelligence and everything else like that. You know, if you know, T'Challa, his genius was actually downplayed and it was pushed towards Shuri. But, you know, at the same time, like, you know, he was, it showed a different side of him as well. There's some things I didn't like about that movie. You know, the strong female character. Okay, that's cool. But this is T'Challa in the, you know, like you didn't hear so much about the Dora Milaje in the earlier cartoons or the earlier appearances of T'Challa. T'Challa was also known as one of the many, one of like the top geniuses in the Marvel universe. With Mr. Mr. Fantastic is one of them. Doctor Doom, Tony Stark, of course, and T'Challa himself. You know, like those were the top geniuses in the Marvel universe. So when you start to see things like, you know, Shuri get that type of play, it's just like feminist lean, showing her off a little bit. You know, we're here for T'Challa, but that's just also a sign of the times and stuff like that. But that doesn't take away from the movie, and she was a good character as well. She was a well-written character, and it worked. It wasn't like overbearing, because if you looked at what happened with that, I think Shuri is the one that took the plant. Was she the one? No, it was his love interest that I think took the plant and then later on saved his life, something like that. Yeah, when they had a defect. Yeah, I hate what they do to what they. Oh, okay. Yeah, I hate what they about to do with the Mad Max series. Make it all about Furiosa. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. I didn't even notice for the longest time that movie she only had one arm. Yeah, man, that movie's crazy, man. But yeah, you know, and the thing is like, okay, cool. Can we just take the virtue of signaling out and actually have this character, make this female character one I can root for? You know, not just because, you know, empowering women, but like just because this woman is actually powerful or witty or what have you, you know, like, anyways. All right, cool. I'm really done this time. Oh shit, almost 2 hours, man. But hey guys, thanks for joining, man. And you know, hopefully you guys take time to grow. You know, have you taken time to grow today? Have you taken time to look at yourself and do a level of introspection? Have you taken the time to make yourself better in terms of your studies? I know Richard Dixon has. That's for damn sure. But you know, have you, you know, done the research? Have you actually, you know, also looked within yourself and things like that? And if anything, you know, always take what I say with a grain of salt. If you're not taking it with a grain of salt, you're low on sodium, man. You know, do your research. Look at interview videos, how to actually conduct an interview, how to deal with an offer letter. You know, last thing I'll talk about, because I haven't gone through this phase yet, but, you know, you get an offer letter and you say, hey, listen, I'd like, you know, or you're not giving me what I'd like, right? You don't say it like this, but the job is not giving you what you like. And you know, now you start to negotiate the offer letter. Look up how to do that. Look up how to actually conduct yourself in an interview. You know, even though you're working from home, wear a nice shirt, you know, look somewhat presentable. Even if you're like me that doesn't get a haircut, I mean, you know, look decent enough. And if you can't look decent enough, or you don't like to because you're, you know, going against the establishment or whatever the fuck I'm doing with my hair, wow them with your intellect, wow them with your speech. You know, like, you know, you out there wowing these bitches with your mouthpiece. You know, wow them with the things that you say and things like that. So make yourself a desirable candidate at the end of the day. And after a while, like, you know, when it comes time to talk price, also, you know, when to talk price. You know, you're not doing that in the first and second interview. You might be doing that in the last interview or when an offer letter is extended. And then how to actually negotiate price. Have everything in writing. Show it in your email to where say, hey, listen, I was guaranteed 3 to 6 month review, or I was guaranteed a review at, you know, this period of time, which would be like 3 months or even 6 months, right? To say like within 3 months of me earning this position and earning this certification or verifying my certification or what have you, or verifying my skills, I would get a bump in pay. And like, you know, don't be afraid to demand that, especially in larger companies. Smaller companies, they might feel some type of way, and that might not be the company you want to work for. But, you know, look up videos how to negotiate these things and going from there. I guess that'd probably be another stream that I could do in terms of like, you know, watching videos on that and what I find from there. It's all Myers-Briggs tests now. Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs. What is that? All right, Myers-Briggs type indicator. In personality typology, the Myers-Briggs type indicator is an introspective self-report questionnaire indicating different physiological preferences in how people receive the world or perceive the world and make decisions. The test attempts to assign 4 categories: introversion or extroversion, sensing or intuition, thinking or feeling, judging or perceiving. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's that test where they ask you the same fucking question 3 or 4 different fucking ways. Bro, they do that shit for fucking Foot Locker. Bitch, I'm here to sell shoes, bro. Like, you know, like I remember I fucking applied to Foot Locker a couple weeks ago because like, I was just trying to find another like secondary job. And then I said, man, fuck it. And that's where, you know, I made that last one of the videos I made talking about like, listen, getting off of some of the social groups and, you know, start consuming more technical content to, you know, get my mind ready to do these type of interviews. But, you know, I was applying, you know, you apply for these jobs and it's like they ask like, okay, well, if your coworker is bleeding, how do you help them? And then it's like, okay, you walk into a room, your coworker needs help. How do you bleed him? Like, you know, it's like they ask the same fucking question in 2 different fucking ways. And it's just like, Jesus Christ, man. Like I know you're trying to catch me up and see like if I'm really honest about it, but it shouldn't take 50 or 100 fucking questions to do that. Jesus, I hate that. I hate that shit. That gets on my fucking nerves. And it's just like, bro, you could do that shit for the, and then, you know, at some point when you get to a certain earning bracket, you start to say, listen, this is too much work for too little money. That's another conversation for another video, another stream. I'm actually going to really try and end it this time. Don007, thank you. Richard Dixon, thank you. Maddox, Izez, Miguel, man, thank you. Elaine, thank you guys for showing up. What's it called? Donald D. Tucker, man, bro. Can't wait to talk to you about the 12 steps or the 12 principles. I forgot the name of it, man. But guys, check out the last stream for all the links and information that was being dropped in that. And also there's like a PDF that was shared about programming and coding and making you a better programmer. All right, guys, with that being said, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Peace.